Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. This your first time listening? Welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast comes from a fan's perspective on IndyCar and other forms of motorsport. Now that my co-host is back from finding a pen and paper, let me introduce you to Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Dan. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm really good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Not a complaint in the world.
That's good.
I'm glad to actually
still trying
be
to get my
home
paper together, though.
podcasting today from home this Sunday evening.
Well, yeah. Hope you're not traveling on Sunday for work, but
I do occasionally, but not this one.
all right. Very good. Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
We're here. We've got the show ready to go, right?
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
Yes, we do.
Can't wait.
I've been calling it the Iowa Double by HyVee. Is what I've been calling it because I don't remember what the official names are, so I'm just sticking to the Iowa Double by HyVee.
One is the HyVeeDeals.com and the other one the HyVee Salute to Farmers.
That's right.
That's what they are. I've got them up.
Yeah. HyVee Deals right here on the shirt because of course I'm wearing my.
Well,
for those of us listening to it on the podcast, right? Because we do also do a YouTube channel as well, but I have to wear my HyVee shirt, my Jack Harvey number 45 HyVee jersey that I wore to the Indy 500, and I'm pretty sure I was the only one there wearing a HyVee shirt at the Indy 500. But I suspect after this weekend and everything that HyVee did for these Iowa races, more people will be wearing HyVee gear.
Well, I saw a lot of people at this race wearing HyVee gear. There was a ton, but at Indianapolis, you are absolutely right that you were probably the only one because even HyVee employees were stopping you at Indianapolis to talk to you because you had a HyVee shirt on.
They wanted to know if I was a HyVee employee.
Like, hey, one of us because you and I are the only one that have this on.
Yep.
So yeah, and so, not only do you have that shirt, but you were at a HyVee store last week
in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
That's right.
Where I got to visit a HyVee and I bought a "You Don't Know Jack" t-shirt. So that one's in the laundry. So I didn't get a chance to wear that today. So
it's dirty.
But really, this is dedicated to the people of HyVee, the HyVee leadership and the people at HyVee. So yeah.
And I'm sure HyVee sells Lucky Charms because I got a Lucky Charms shirt on. So.
Yes, you do. I love it.
It's a long story why I got this shirt on, and I'm not going to explain it. So
we got to have some outtakes one day.
It's Christmas in July.
There you go. Yes, it is.
You're red, I'm green. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
Pre-production show, but it is what it is.
Hey, Tonight, Tim, we're going to discuss the Iowa doubleheaders, obviously, as brought to us by HyVee. You just named them off. I'm not going to do it again. But first, we got to talk a little F1 and SRX. I can't believe we're going to talk SRX. But first, Formula One, Timmy.
Yes, Dan.
Ferrari's greatest rival this year is Ferrari. Did you watch today's race?
I sure did. And normally I don't, but I did. And I watched it.
Yep. Did son number one watch today's race?
Yes, that's why I watched it. We had breakfast this morning, sitting at the island and had the TV in front of us. So we watched the beginning of it there. And then we decided we weren't comfortable there anymore. And we moved to the TV room, whatever you want to call it, the living room. So,
I'd be curious to know if he feels the same way that Ferrari's greatest rival this year is Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, while leading, was starting to experience tire blistering. A lot of tire blistering on the right tire, like inside right tire. Whether or not that contributed to his race-ending crash, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, I don't know. But why wouldn't Ferrari bring him in, Tim, when that started to happen?
It's because there's something going on with that team that they don't seem to make the right calls. They call other teammates in when they're in the middle of the battle. So
that's a whole nother thing. I think what is going on here, it seems to me like Ferrari have been chasing for so many years, they forgot how to lead. And I think that's kind of got them on their back foot trying to figure out these strategy calls. Because like you mentioned, I don't think you can talk about Leclerc's issue without talking about Sainz, right? He kicked ass in this race. He started second from last. He was up to fifth place, was battling in fourth place. He seemingly had it going on. Sure, they knew that his tires were not going to last, until the end of the race, or at least they felt the race. But he was still battling, Tim, when they were calling him into the pit.
I know.
I don't understand.
And why call him in?
I know.
Take your 5 seconds after the race is over and finish on those tires. You're going to finish better than what you finished.
So they gave up a spot, I think. I mean, Sainz did end up finishing in fifth. Potentially could have finished in fourth. He potentially could have finished sixth, seventh, or eighth, right? If those tires really would have fallen off a cliff. We don't know. But nonetheless, Ferrari's biggest problem this year is Ferrari.
I agree.
And what that leaves us for is Max Verstappen and Red Bull just to continue to win with very little concern. Both championships, Drivers' Championship, as well as Manufacturers' Championship. And I say very little concern right now because Mercedes, which I've been saying all along, will eventually get themselves together. And today they finished second and third with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. So it's only a matter of time before they get that together. And I fear for what that means for Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, for sure. But it was a very interesting race to me. Obviously, I watch a lot more IndyCar than I do Formula One, and I love Formula One. And as you know, we are going to the Formula One race in Austin. But I think with 30 some laps left in the race, I already know who was winning that race. It was over. And you don't get that in IndyCar, not as much. Well, you almost did this week, but but at the end of the day, and then you have the virtual safety car, which we know our friend Billy loves.
Bill from Shelby car loves the virtual safety car.
Yeah, and then you have a situation where you don't get out of a virtual safety. The Red Bull car does not get out of the virtual safety in a manner to keep their podium position. I was baffled.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it that George Russell got around Checo, right, to get third place. It made no sense to me. I was like, and then you're on the radio saying that George had basically jumped the start or whatever and went off track. No, you made a bonehead move. Get on the gas when it goes green. It's so
he was caught out, right? He was caught out. That wasn't ready for that to go back to green flag, and that was it. What was more surprising to me is that Checo had nothing for Mercedes. He had the advantage of DRS. They have a straight line advantage they've had over Mercedes, over everybody. And he still wasn't able to get around.
Yeah, he sat behind Lewis Hamilton the whole race. And then at the end of the day, with 4 laps to go, he gets passed by George Russell.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll see. This thing will be over before you and I go to Austin in October, right?
The championship?
Yeah.
It appears that way. Unless Ferrari can get their stuff in order. And Leclerc, this is not the first time he's crashed out in the lead. I think it's his third or something. It's pretty high up the ladder, which I put that. I don't know if I put that on the team for his accident. He said he was trying too much. Again, there was some blistering on the tires, but my understanding was on the front tires, and the rear was the one that snapped. So I don't think it had anything to do with the blistering. I think it was just a mental lapse and just pushing a little too hard when you didn't need to. And I like your point that's saying they're just not used to being in the lead and dictating the pace and running their own race and not chasing somebody. And it seemed like when Max had pitted, because Max was already pitted and he was on fresher tires, they were trying to, go as quick as they could to make sure that they weren't jumped on the pit strategy. But I think you're keeping him out because you want to do a one-stop strategy is what I'm gathering.
Yeah, but with that early tire deck and that early on in the race, even though it's mediums versus hards, I think the plan A goes right out the window right away. I think Leclerc is overdriving and taking risks that he doesn't need to take because he doesn't have confidence in the team.
Interesting. I wouldn't say it has a confidence in the team. I think you have to have confidence in the team you're driving for.
I don't
Maybe it's
think he
just a
has
little bit
confidence
of,
in the team.
yeah, maybe you don't
So
have
he's trying
confidence in the
to,
pitch strategy,
yeah,
so you're nervous about that.
yep.
And that would equate to the
Strategy,
team
um, the reliability.
reliability.
Yeah.
Did we say that at
So
the same time? We
yeah,
did.
pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
SRX. Tim, did you see some SRX news this weekend?
I saw some news. I didn't
Let
see
me,
any.
okay, so let me ask you this first, because we've had very little time to prepare for this, so I didn't want to just throw this at you. So you have seen some news. I'm sure you've seen what I'm getting at here.
This is a
I
former IndyCar driver, right?
maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't watch one SRX event this season. I watched it. I watched a couple last year. I didn't watch anything this season. Have you watched any of the races this year?
I have not.
Yeah,
And I hear it's really entertaining, so I don't know
I
how I
did.
keep missing it.
I guess. Do you know this
Can,
guy who won the
can we,
championship this season?
it's already over?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if
Well, how do you crown a champion if it's not over?
well, I didn't realize their season was over. I missed the whole season. I missed the whole SRX. How many races was it? Do you know?
No,
You don't.
6.
Was it Marco Andretti? How you like that? Marco Andretti, a champion.
Can you believe it? Good for Marco.
It sounds good. It has a good twist.
I
It
saw
has a good ring to it. I'll put it that way.
as only Twitter fans can do. I saw a couple of tweets today suggesting that Marco will have an amazing career in NASCAR if he chooses to go to NASCAR Xfinity specifically. I love Twitter fans. Really
so
do.
you think there's multiple NASCAR teams offering a job at this point? SRX is the ladder system to NASCAR.
Hey, Andretti's into everything else. Why can't he
roll out? He could just
roll out a Toyota with a chrome bumper and start that team.
Yep, give birth to another team.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
Andretti Autosport in NASCAR.
All whilst waiting
if it's
for the Formula
if
1
it's a
thing to
good
work.
business decision, don't put it past Michael to do it. He'd go ahead and make that happen for sure.
A black and yellow Gamebridge Xfinity car, right?
With a sun in it.
With a chrome bumper, yeah.
Who else would you put on that team? Would you just put IndyCar drivers on there, former IndyCar? Put Max Pappas in the other seat?
Well, I think Kyle Busch is looking for a ride next year because M&M's or something is going away, and Gibbs hasn't been able to re-sign him yet, and I think Toyota's trying to keep him. So there you go. There's a match made in heaven. Toyota needs a place for Kyle. Andretti needs another team. There you go. Boom. We just brokered it. Love it.
You can always put Jimmy Johnson in the car too.
Oh Lord.
The return of Jimmy to NASCAR.
Hey, can we talk about the tweet that I sent you, the screenshot, the Paul Tracy tweet?
Yeah,
you didn't think it was funny. I literally laughed out loud.
I was like, "Which one are you talking?" You tweet me or you tweet or
I screenshot you all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
So for the listeners, what we're talking about is they were interviewing Paul. If you did not watch the SRX race, for the listeners, they had Paul Tracy. They were interviewing Paul Tracy on camera after the SRX race, and they had him listed as second place in the 2000 whatever Indy 500 asterisk Elio Castroneves won the race.
Was that legitimate? You didn't put that in there yourself? That's
no, that was funny. Elio Castroneves won 2002 Indianapolis 500 runner-up. Elio Castroneves won. I love that, Tim. I really do. You said that's not funny. I said that's hysterical. I really do.
I did. I said that's not cool. You can't do that. There's that feud that once went on. I don't know if it goes on anymore, but
sure it is. They've mentioned it on the IndyCar broadcast when he was in the booth.
Yeah, I guess it does continue to go on. I'm looking for your text from you, which is not hard to find, by the way. Oh yes, it's the.
So does funny. Anybody? We'll have to send that out. Can we send that out, Tim?
Somehow? I don't know. We can send it out. There it is for anybody that's on YouTube. Now you just saw the reflection of all my screens and everything I got up, but that's okay.
We'll send it out on the on our Instagram. Can you do that for me?
I'll send it. I'll send it out right after the show. In case you missed it, it'll be like a breaking news alert. In case you missed it.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Time for our feature discussion. I need to set this up though a little bit. This episode is going to be a little bit different format than what you're used to if you're a regular listener. Instead of the team by team rundown, we're going to concentrate on, we're calling it the Power Five, right? So what does that mean? We're going to focus the conversation on the top 5 teams. We consider those teams to be Penske, Ganassi, Andretti, and Arrow McLaren. But Dan, that's only 4 teams, right?
Yeah, it's only 4.
Dan, that's
You're
only 4
absolutely right.
teams.
So what do we do with the 5th?
So Tim has chosen his 5th team, and I have chosen my 5th team. We've not shared it with each other, so we'll talk about it after we go through the rundown.
And if we selected the same team,
I think it'd be
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised actually. We talked a little bit about HyVee, and I again want to acknowledge the folks at HyVee for putting on a great show, as well as the folks from Penske Entertainment. When you and I were in the media center in Detroit, we were talking to a guy there who was, works for Penske Entertainment, who was helping out with the Grand Prix, who was also enlisted to help out with Iowa. So he was telling us about how they were setting up hospitality and they were doing everything. So they were kind of pulling double duty there, which is really great. So I think the event looked amazing. Like I said last week, I really wish we had chosen to go to this one, even with the heat and everything else. I really would have liked to have been there. The crowd was huge for 100 degrees, for all the people in the stands. And there's a delicious fight between chapweb.net and Nathan Brown from the Indianapolis Star on Twitter too. So if you're on Twitter, take a look at that, over just some parsing of words between, what the crowd was and if it was a sellout and everything else. I love it. It was delicious. Nonetheless, the activation by HyVee really, to me, is benchmark, I think, for any IndyCar sponsor or partner looking to be a part of the series. The business to business opportunities that HyVee gave to, Google, DoorDash, Busch Light, and Nestle, just to name a few, I think was incredible. And it kind of reminded me, Tim, of the old like Target cars or the old Kmart cars, where you saw associate sponsorships on those cars, which was a business to business opportunity for Target or for Kmart back in those days. Really well done. It didn't stop there either, because HyVee had set up a site, or on site, a store for the folks in the campground that they could pick up stuff, groceries, whatever they needed. Sweet. And I think they could have it delivered too, is what I think I heard there as well. And it looked like they were using old shipping containers, which I love when people use shipping containers for things. Detroit City Football Club here in Detroit uses old shipping containers as their concession stands at their field. In Detroit. I think that is so cool.
I love the stores. The stores were amazing. And I don't know why those stores don't travel from every single event for all the campers, right? So why weren't they Road America? Why weren't they Mid-Ohio? What? Take them around. That's like the best thing ever. I know there's obviously cost that goes along with that, but if you're selling items, you could probably recoup that cost. I would recoup
something, you'd figure, right? Yeah. It's all self-contained in those containers. So just amazing. I think, from where we stand, they invested millions to get this show off the ground. And they, enlisted the help of their people. They had a lot of volunteers, local volunteers, but they also had HyVee employees that chipped in as well. So it was really great.
Yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't, the number of people that were there, all the activations that were going on, the concerts that were happening, how the drivers were talking about hanging out when the concerts came after the race and having a beer, if you will. Yeah. It just seemed to resonate with everybody that was there, and it resonated even with those folks that weren't there. And I'm really considering buying some of their stuff on their website and having it delivered. They can deliver it anywhere. So I think all IndyCar fans should at least do one order from HyVee, especially if you're not in their area where you can go to their store and stuff. Just sort of support them, since they're supporting IndyCar in such a grand fashion.
Yeah. Short tracks. I love short tracks. So thank you, HyVee, for bringing back this short track. You like short track racing, Timmy?
I enjoyed the racing this weekend. I know it's 2 races. It was a lot of time, but I enjoyed both races. And I had a flashback, and I know you're gonna yell at me for this, but I had a flashback to Milwaukee and the Milwaukee Mile and what
Here
goes
we
on
go.
there with passing. And I know it's a little flatter of a track, but
Mhm.
just the way you could go 2, 3 wide, choose different lines, start high, go low at the end of the corner. Like that's good racing when you can get side by side and cross up on each other. And I know some people
Yeah.
crossed up a little too much and got other people loose. And I hear, or I sort of heard, there's some driver etiquette of what to do and not to do in those situations.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the short track racing, and I was not as optimistic going into this weekend and
Okay.
as you were. Like, you
Yeah.
were all for this, and I was, okay, let's check it out and see what it's all about. But it was really good racing. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
The only thing, obviously, I think I would change, right? Nobody asked my opinion, but opinions are like belly buttons. We all got
Everybody's
one.
got one.
Yep. Most stink.
Okay.
My opinion here in this situation is these races need to be at night. So Bud Denker, right, Penske Entertainment, was there, and somebody had gotten. It sounds like a quote from Bud saying that this race is going to go on for is a 3-year deal. So he didn't
Well,
say, I there's date equity. I think, if this is their date, this is their date. But I think they have to do what they can to move this to a night race. I think
I don't
TV is
know.
what's difficult. They're on national, right? So it was NBC
Yeah.
yesterday, NBC today. That could be an issue going forward, is getting it on TV, because with all of the sponsor activation and all the business to business that went on with this one, it would be hard pressed to get HyVee, I believe, to sign off on the idea that we move it to Peacock.
Yeah, I think so. You got to keep
USA
it
might
on.
be a little easier to sell, but it's either NBC or USA. I just don't see it moving to streaming only.
Yeah.
You know, unless HyVee does a deal, because let's face it, they're willing to invest. Unless HyVee does a deal where they give IndyCar fans, by scanning this damn thing, right? IndyCar fans a free weekend of Peacock or something, so they can watch the
Hmm.
race, and that gives all the other IndyCar fans an opportunity to see it. But that's all pie in the
Yeah,
sky.
I don't think you want. I wouldn't want to do that. I think um, they they obviously put on a great show. They did a great job with it.
Mhm.
And I don't think the weather was as big as a factor as people made it to be. I know Saturday was really, really hot, but
It
I
was
think
100
today they said it
degrees.
was 80s.
Yeah.
So today was kind of
Yeah.
ideal, I think, for a race in an
Yeah.
afternoon, right? Mid
Yeah.
80s out there.
Yeah.
And even HyVee went to the effort to give away free water so that way people were staying hydrated and were as comfortable as possible in the heat,
Yeah.
which we talked about on our last show, and potentially being a deterrent for folks coming back year after year.
Yeah. I'll forgive you your Milwaukee reference, because I actually brought up Kmart. So we're
I
even.
used to love the activations in the stores.
I know.
Kmart,
Yeah. Yeah.
Target,
Yes.
they had the big banners with the
Mhm.
drivers on there.
Yeah. I
And then they
worked at
had,
Target when I was in high school, when
uh-huh.
Michael Andretti and Eddie Cheever came in to sign autographs in our break room.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And they had the car out front, and they had like a whole thing going on. They had, stuff for kids, and it was fun. But I was working at Target in high school at that time.
And we, where I grew up, we used to have both stores, right? But Kmart was pretty popular around us,
Yeah.
and they would put those big banners up of the drivers, and then we would, my brother and I would go and talk to the manager at the store and say, hey, when you guys start to take those down, here's our number, call us, we'll come pick them up and take them.
Yeah.
I've got several
Do you
still
really?
today.
No
Yes,
kidding.
still today. So
That's awesome.
I'd have to dig them out, but I definitely have a few from back in the day, which is pretty cool.
That's very cool. I didn't know that.
Yep.
All right. So first of the Power Five, got to start Penske. I don't see how you could not start Penske. Tim, I don't know. We've reminisced a lot on this episode, and we're probably going to reminisce a little bit more. I don't know that I've seen a performance so dominant in IndyCar in quite some time
I agree.
than what you saw out
It's
of
been a long
Joseph
time.
here. If my math is right, because the box score wasn't ready when I was putting these notes together, so I had to look at the lap summary and do the math myself. Joseph led 354 laps out of 550 total. That's 70.8% of laps led this weekend.
He was dominant,
Dominant.
completely dominant, and would
Completely.
have been if it wasn't for an issue.
Yeah. So race one, obviously he finished first. He won that race. He his car looked really good all day on Saturday and
Hmm.
looked particularly good in traffic. And I think that's what makes the difference. And that makes total sense because you're on a short track where you're always going to be in traffic.
Hmm.
During his pit stops, he did call in a couple of times asking for a little bit more wing or a little bit of wing to come in. Will Power, his closest pursuer, did not. Will didn't make any changes to his car, at least that we could see on TV or that we heard during the radio.
Hmm.
I think that was the difference. I think that was the difference in race one, right? Joseph was set up for traffic. Will was not. So as the tires started to go off on a very hot track with a lot of traffic out there, Will just was not able to mount any kind of charge whatsoever
Hmm.
in that particular case.
Yeah, and Will said that he used his tires up a little too much
Mm-hmm.
in the first race on
Yeah.
the last stint, and sort of cost him, some positions there where he felt he could have, done better. So that was his goal coming into race two, was to take care of the tires a little better.
Yep.
But you're right, you got to handle through traffic. You're doing 20-second laps. You're going to come up on back markers really fast, which provides a lot of excitement for the fans to watch these cars go in and out, weave through these cars, and be able to pass, and or be passed if they can't get around a lap car quick enough. So um, yeah,
Yeah.
handling is important for sure.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I mean, he won. Joseph won in dominating fashion. Right? I mean, he dominated that race. Race two started similarly to race one, with Will leading early, but as the tires wore and traffic started to ramp up, power fell off the pace, and Joseph was there to pick it up. Had it not been for what I strongly believe was a failure on the right rear corner of that IndyCar, that Hitachi IndyCar,
Hmm.
Joseph would have won the second race, and he would have, I believe, done it easily, just
Oh
like
yeah,
he did on Saturday.
totally.
Um, Tim, what does this mean for Joseph's championship hopes?
Oh, I still think, he's the hottest driver out there right now. And I think even with the hiccup here, he's still, I would imagine, one of the favorites to be at the top at the end of the season. So he's 30 some points behind. He would have been 10 points or so up.
Yep.
It's really Will and Joseph chasing Marcus right now.
Yep.
And I don't think it hurts him a ton. I think he's got enough to, and obviously he's got the right team. He's got the right package. He's got the Chevy power plant, which has seemed to be dominant
Mm-hmm.
in this series thus far this year, except for a couple races. If you look at the podium across both days,
I'm going to stop you right there because we're going to pick it up. I'm going to pick up with what you're going to talk about. So Joseph
so
finished first on Saturday, 24th on Sunday because of the crash.
Mhm.
Will Power finished third on Saturday, second on Sunday. I still believe that of this Penske trio, Will has the best shot at winning this championship. I still feel that. Yeah, Newgarden has, in fact, 3 more wins on the season than Will, but very inconsistent in terms of finishes this season compared to Will. You said he's got a couple. He's got more than a couple. Okay. So Will's average finish this season through Iowa is 6.3. Pelot won the championship last year, averaging six finish.
6th place finish.
Yep.
Okay.
That compared to Joseph, whose average is 9.75, almost 10th place. And that's with 4 wins, Tim.
I know. And he came out and said they need to be more consistent. It can't be win or bust.
And
And
it's win or bust. He was driving
but you
very
can't control
aggressively
you
on
can't control race
Saturday.
2.
That's true. He was driving very aggressively in race 1 in racing his teammate. He was driving very aggressively today with this little pit out thing, right, against his teammate.
Yeah, he was
Driving desperate. Do you remember what we talked about with Charles Leclerc? I don't think that Newgarden's driving that way because he has no confidence in his team. I think he's got 100% confidence in his team. I think what's happening to him is he's starting to hear footsteps. After 12 races, he's averaging 3 places behind his teammate, and he has 4 wins on the season. And now he's tied with Scott Dixon. That's the last guy I think you want to be tied with.
I agree, but I still have Newgarden taking this championship. I think he's got all the momentum. I know it was taken out of his sail with the broken rear shock strut, whatever you want to call it, that was broken on the back of it. But and I know he's done really well at Iowa. So years past, he's dominated. It's his 4th win at Iowa. So he was going for his 5th. I
picked him last week, and I never pick him.
I know you picked him, and he almost swept it for you.
And I never pick him.
That's why they race. We'll see what happens at Indianapolis next week, and so on and so forth. I think he's got the upper edge. I think he's definitely more aggressive. I saw that in both races, as you pointed out, to the point that I kind of scratched my head a few times saying that is your teammate. Typically, you don't want to race that hard, and I don't know what that does in the paddock. Yeah, right. But I don't think there's any desperation. I just think I've got a fast car. I'm going to move forward, and I know I'm a little further back in the points system. So from that perspective, I'm going to go as hard as I can, and it might bite you a few times, but it didn't bite him this weekend. It was nothing to do with his driving and had to do with the mechanical.
True. Well, I do want to say something there. I think he might have a little bit
for a minute.
No, he might have a little bit of desperation, only because he's looking at it like you and I are looking at it, right? He has 3 going into Saturday. He has 3 wins, and he was in what, 5th place in the champion, or tied for 4th, right, with Dixon last week. Then he was 4th place, and he was still, or 4 wins on the season, and he was still 3 out of the championship. So yeah, I think there was a little bit of desperation there, knowing that Iowa was his best opportunity to replay Indy, where it really went bad for this team. And I think that's where we saw a little bit. We're not going to see that same level of desperation on the road course at Indy. I don't think we're going to see that at Nashville either, but he might have been a little desperate here, and it might have been the reason for that. Because even in qualifying, if you watched qualifying, or if you go back to qualifying, when Will pipped him for qualifying, his response was, well, there's an advantage to going last. And he meant within the team, because of course they share the data.
Yeah.
It didn't sound to me like, congratulations to Will, we'll get him tomorrow. We got a Hitachi number 2 is fast. We're going to have a fast race car tomorrow. It's going to be hot, but we'll be ready.
Yeah, no, he mentioned he was disappointed. He thought he had the car to take the pole and win from the pole, which he had the car on race day both days, and it just didn't happen. So if you look at the season, you got 5 more races to, get to the championship. And I'm looking at the events, and I think he can do it, honestly.
Now you have Dixon, and you've got a very consistent power, and you got Ericsson, who's no slouch either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's one more in the Penske trio here. Scott McLaughlin, 22nd on Saturday, 3rd place Sunday. Saturday was a very uncharacteristic pit stop miscue, which, they sent him out without a tire nut. So they had to bring him back in and get that going. That ruined his race. Surely he had a good car. I mean, we know he had a great car, right? Because his teammates had a great car. So exactly. There's no way to think he didn't. These Penske's were fast. They were fast in testing. They were fast when they rolled off the Freightliners on Friday. He rebounded nicely for race 2, but wasn't necessarily a factor. I think that might be experience, Tim. I think we forget this is only his 2nd year in IndyCar, and I think it's his first trip to an oval like this, because they're all different.
Yeah, they are. And Scott did well. Like you mentioned, it was a miscue with the team. But I really like Scott McLaughlin.
So do I.
He's really grown on me. I wouldn't say I was last year he was kind of in the back, working towards having consistent runs and getting his first victory, which he did the first race of the season in 2022 here. But I think his personalities really come out too, and his personalities come out on multiple levels. And I think you really see it on the show that him and Joseph do. But even just in interviews, you can see that carry into interviews that he has with the media and stuff. And he's good, right?
Yeah.
He drives for the best team in the business. I don't think anybody can argue that they aren't the best team. I think most people think they are, or at least the top two for sure. And what I like about the Penske organization as a whole, they're just very stable. Everything seems under control. Not a lot of pushing and shoving when it comes to that team. Everybody knows their position. Very well run organization. I don't know, I'm preaching to the choir, but probably the best place in IndyCar to be, I think. And the three drivers we just spoke about, all did phenomenal jobs all weekend long. And if it wasn't for a miscue in the pits, and if it wasn't for a mechanical, they would have dominated this whole weekend.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they totally would. Like, would have been nothing to see a 1-2-3 right on Saturday and Sunday.
I know.
Newgarden was going to win this race today. Nobody had anything for him.
Yeah, nobody did.
Nobody had anything for him. Doesn't take away from, his weekend. I'm just looking at the breadth of work this year so far, and it's very inconsistent. But I think he has his strengths and his weaknesses. The difference between that and something like Palou did last year, or something that Dixon has been doing for 20 years, is, your strengths are pretty good. Your weaknesses are not that bad. Mm-hmm. So it stays very steady Eddie, right? There's not a lot of peaks and valleys, where this year, and this is the one that's kind of outside of his control. I think this is where Newgarden, I think this one's going to sting. This one's going to stay with him. And if he loses this championship this year, I think it'll be the first thing he'll think of. Is this mechanical at Iowa?
Yeah. Yeah, because you lost a ton of points in a split
like you said, there. He would have walked away with a lead.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it was like 10 points or something. That would have been pretty big.
Again, would have negated, right, the double points from Indianapolis, and would have washed away the sins of how bad Penske was in
Totally. And the other thing that I noticed about the Penske team and one particular driver is Will Power. Mm-hmm. Like, his post-race interviews were very interesting and very mellow and very like, yeah, this is what we came to do, is to get a good finish. And I remember the fired up Will. Is he still in there somewhere? Okay.
Oh yeah.
But he's just very mellow and was very, I would say, accepting of his finishes this weekend, which for me,
how could you not? Third place and second place, those are pretty good.
But for me, I look at where he started.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I look at Will and go, okay, if he started first, typically he's going to finish first, or he's not going to finish. That was the old Will, right? We're talking about the old Will now.
Yep.
I just didn't, and so to see him be accepting of his finishes, I'm still surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised by his demeanor.
Well,
even when his shirt's messed up into the button. And
I know, he had something tucked in there, right? Yeah.
Somebody just help him out. The zipper was sticking out.
It's so funny. It's so funny. So a couple of things. So you had already gone, because you had a commitment on Sunday after the Detroit race, right? So I sat in Will's press conference in Detroit, and he talked a lot about where he is in his career, right? And it makes no sense. Maybe it wasn't Sunday. Nonetheless, it was in Detroit, because it's the only press conference I've been in this year, right?
It was Sunday after the race, because he won it, and then he was playing in the fountain for 45 minutes to an hour, and I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. So he was talking about his career, right? That it doesn't matter at this point. He has a very accomplished career. So it's not like he's a 21-year-old trying to get to that next contract. He's a 41-year-old, right, who is probably at the end of his contract, and he knows it. And he knows that what he has behind him is something that he can be extremely proud of. There's nothing there. Sure, there's some wins, and I'm sure there's some things that have gotten away from him that are going to sting. But overall, his career has been tremendous. And where
outstanding.
Tim, think about it, right? He is in a full-time ride for the best team in IndyCar after being put in there as a fill-in while Elio had that IRS issue that he was going through. So they picked Will to race the car for Elio while Elio was going through his legal trouble. And then once Elio was back, then they would pull Will out of that car, and then that was it. Good luck. Thanks for playing, right?
Yeah.
But they saw something and they kept him. And this was back in the IRL cars. This is so, and how long have we been with these Dalars, right? So you might have it in front of you, but he's been with that team now for what, 12, 13 years, 14 years?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't have it in front of me, but
so yeah, right? So if you consider it from that perspective, that's where I think somewhere along the line somebody mentioned that to him, right? And said, well, you got nothing to be hang your head about. You can be you can walk away from IndyCar right now and have no regret. He's the best qualifier we've seen, Tim, in our lifetime.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He doesn't have the wins that Scott Dixon does, but he's got a lot of them. Right? He's got 40 some wins, I think. So he's, and I think that's why he's less fiery like that, right? Because there's no sense in it. He understands, like, okay, well, I can go crazy like a lunatic here, but it isn't going to do anything. It isn't going to change anything. It isn't going to change the results. It's not going to change, what we do or what happens to him or the perception of him, right?
He's been with Penske since 2009.
There you go. Yeah, you got it. So,
yeah. Well, I guess that explains his demeanor when he's in post-race interviews these days, and he doesn't, finish on top of the podium, but still gets a podium place, even though he's the number one qualifier.
Yeah. Will's Will, right? So like his words in Detroit were, because I don't care. It's not like he doesn't care about the career. He's just going through the motion. He's just collecting a paycheck. No, he's not. He just doesn't. It isn't going to make or break him, right? It isn't going to make or break his career. It isn't going to make or break his legacy. It's all very secure.
Yeah.
Everything he's doing right now is just gravy. Right? So.
Yeah. He's got the 39 wins and 83 podiums.
There you go. Yeah.
And 58 poles. I think that still counts. I think it's already updated.
Yeah. And it's like 20 some percent of all the races he's entered too. Like, right? He's on pole.
He's a stud. If he could get that zipper figured out, he'd be good.
McLaughlin. So you mentioned Scott McLaughlin, and then we'll move on. But I'll plug somebody else's podcast. I didn't pay much attention to Scott McLaughlin last year. And then I listened to him on Dinner with Racers podcast. I was doing something, right? It was like Thanksgiving when I learned of this podcast, and I started listening to it, like binging it. And I just started picking out people that I wanted to listen to. And his was one of the early ones that I wanted to listen to. And that made me a fan, like right away. Like I was like, I dig this guy, right? Like his personality just came right through there. He was who he was, and, getting ready to come into this second season and everything. So I'm thrilled how it's worked out for him this year. He's got a win behind him. Penske's chugging away, man, all cylinders. And I like him. Like you said, I like him. I'm not, I don't root against anybody in IndyCar at all. I don't root for Joseph Newgarden. I think he's fine. I think he's a good driver. He isn't somebody that I actively root for. I actively root for Will Power. I actively root for Scott McLaughlin. I actively root for, Alex Palou.
That's good. I'm glad you don't.
I actively root for Sato-san. So, I mean, it's like, right? So it's just how it is.
Yeah.
I don't pick sides, right? I'm all over the board. Moving on.
Yep.
Arrow McLaren, Pato Award second on Saturday. Winner on Sunday, race 2. Tim, I have to say that Arrow McLaren might be the weakest link in awards game. There's a theme here.
What does that mean?
And even then, they're getting stronger every weekend. This is Palou's second win on the season. I'll get there, with the first coming at Barber. This guy's a real deal. What do you think?
I think he's the real deal for sure. I don't.
You want me to explain the first part, right?
Yeah, please
That
indulge
car
us.
on Saturday was diabolical. It was right. They kept calling it saying, "Oh, it's free. Oh, you can see Pato's car is very free." That thing was loose. It was all over the board. Right. You couldn't keep
Yeah.
that. It was wagging its tail like my golden doodle,
Well,
all over the place like crazy, like this. And the only guy who could hold that thing together is Pato O'Ward because Felix finally
yeah,
couldn't catch it.
he put
Right.
it in the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But I
that right
don't.
there, once McLaren figures out these setups and gives them a car that is absolutely bulletproof, like the Penske's, because it's possible. Look out.
Yeah, but I you have to look at Arrow McLaren as a young new team, right? I know
You
they've
do.
got
Yeah.
so they're going through growing pains, but
Mhm.
I don't think the team is putting him in bad positions or bad spots. I think it's more of the format this weekend that caused that issue on Saturday.
Maybe that's fair.
Because you did qualifying, which was I listened to it to IMS Radio thanks to you
Mhm.
on their podcast
That is
while I
so
was
cool. Yep.
doing other things this weekend. It was really good to listen through that, and so thank you for you mentioned it on the show a few weeks ago, and then I was busy doing stuff on Saturday, and of course you mentioned it again, and so I listened. So it was really good. So I think is the format, right? So once qualifying is over, and you qualified for both races at one time, which was very interesting to me. But anyway, once that was over, the car was in lockdown until
Yeah.
the race, so
Worked for me.
the team couldn't touch it. So if it was loose in qualifying and it was loose, whatever, that's just the way it went to the track. And being a newer team, I don't think you have as much resources and as much data from past races, right,
Mhm.
to set the car up correctly. So I don't think it's the team holding him back. I think it was more the format this weekend, but it didn't
He
really
brought
hold
it
him back,
home.
in my opinion.
Yeah, he brought it home second with that
I know.
crazy car.
I know.
But only a select few drivers could have brought that car home.
Oh, he's talented for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Very talented. Yep.
Rosenquist, right? Put it in the wall. So, and it's not to say, Felix is, an inept driver or whatever it is. He's just
Mm-mm.
not driving the car the same way that O'Ward is. He's not
Yep.
getting the same out of the car. He put it on pole, right, at Texas. So he being Rosenquist. So,
Yep. Totally did.
but you think O'Ward's got F1 potential?
Yeah, I think so.
I ask this only because that's, of course, what kicks off all this, right? Award. Every young driver aspires to
Yeah.
Formula One, right? We asked Hinch that. We asked Bob Varsha that, right? We asked Max Pappas that
Yeah.
when we had those guys on. So,
Do you think all three that have been talked about at F1 are ready for F1, or could
um,
is there anybody
I
that
honestly don't think
stands above the
Colton.
rest, or you
I
think
don't
they're all
think
kind of?
Herta's ready for F1. I would
Yeah.
probably put Pillow and Award like 1A, 1B, and I would probably put Colton behind them.
1A, one. Well, who's A and B?
Take your pick.
All right.
Yeah, take your pick.
Okay. I was
You
just
agree with
curious.
that or no?
Yeah, I think I do.
Just out of those
I
three.
would probably would have put them all at the same level that any three of those could go over there
Yeah.
and be competitive and do well in a team.
Herta is
Even Colton Herta, who hasn't had results this year, right? There's a
right, but
lot of
he's
stuff going on with that team.
overperforming the car, right? He's
Yeah.
over-indexing the car. He's the only
Is it the
one.
car he's given, or is it the
A little bit of
I
both,
don't
right?
know.
This
Yeah,
crazy strategy, and the pits and
code
the
words.
code words and the sock breaking over his head and losing his hair and whatever else, and it's like, you know what I mean? Go fast, but save fuel. Pass this guy if you can, but you got to hit this number. And it's like,
Yeah.
he's made everything he can with what he's been given,
Yeah.
right?
And he's made some errors, but I think everybody
Yeah,
makes a few errors here and there.
yeah.
And
Pallot's in a better position because he's racing for Ganassi, right? Award, he, like you said, he doesn't have a team with a story. It's McLaren, but it's Arrow, Schmidt, Peterson, right?
Yeah.
Is who they bought. So they're starting to line things up in
Yeah,
that situation. So, but O'Ward is making more lemonade than what Colton is, and Pelot is doing
I
what
agree.
you'd expect somebody driving a Ganassi.
I agree.
So,
You convinced me, Dan. You
there
always
you go.
convince me.
Yeah, I think you just do it just to move on because otherwise we'd sit here for too long.
That could be it too.
Yeah. Felix Rosenquist, 26. We mentioned he put it in the wall. Seventh place on Sunday. Not the sharpest race for Felix. Again, like I was saying about McLaren being the weak link for Award, full on display for Rosenquist. He's no slouch. He knows how to win in this car. He's won in these cars.
Mhm.
He's a very talented driver. He put it on pole at Texas, so he knows how to drive ovals. It's just, McLaren just hasn't gotten the handle of these cars the same way, someone like Penske does or somebody like Ganassi does.
Mhm. And
I
he
let,
seemed happy with his
yeah.
results too. The
Oh yeah.
post-race interview,
He seems pretty unflappable though, doesn't he? Like he doesn't seem like he gets too fiery or too down. I mean,
no.
he's not the 20-some-year-old Will Power, that's for sure.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Like he just seems to go with it, and he's happy with what he's
Yeah.
doing. And yeah,
And he's built like a tree trunk. Have you noticed that? That's not a slam. That's a compliment. The guy is like, right? He's got a thick neck. He's got a real thick, compact chest, and he
I don't think
looks
he's
like
tall. He's got to be
no,
super
no, he's
short.
tiny. Remember we saw him in Detroit, but that's the whole thing. Like he is just so stout, like
Yeah,
in that car. It's so funny when you see him. I noticed it this even more so this weekend. Like
yeah.
how thick his neck is, and just how thick he is. He's obviously not fat, right? He's a little person, but he looks
Hmm.
very muscular, right? Like very
Hmm.
dense. So I
Yeah,
had to say
and he's 30 years old. I had no idea.
that's
I
good.
would have put him. I would have put him a little younger than
He's
that,
right in
but
the prime of his career.
yeah,
So
he's a kid having fun. That's what I saw.
yeah. Much improved result in race two, but of course he had another mechanical issue, this time with brakes. Not ideal, right? Not
No.
ideal, which, you're not braking a lot on an oval, but it made a play in the pit stop. So
Yeah,
that put him behind. Put him behind though. He finished seventh. So that's a pretty good finish. He
yeah.
made the best of what he had.
Speaking of the short track and the short oval and the brakes and all that, they were upshifting a couple
Yeah.
times, two,
Like,
three
yeah,
times down
from
the straightaway.
fourth gear
Uh,
to, yeah, all the way.
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah, so they were going up.
Mhm.
So definitely some braking, or maybe just rolling out of the throttle going into those corners. But yeah, I
They
was
had that,
surprised by how much shifting there was going on, which was
yeah,
good to see.
they had the full wings on there too. So I imagine when you let off the gas, right, at 180 miles an hour, that
Putting the
thing
air
slows
brake
down
on.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure they slow down pretty quick. Moving on, Power Five, Ganassi talking about consistency, right? Pelot fell out of the top 10 in the second race, but otherwise, I mean, all four drivers put together, I think, a great weekend. And that's not something we say from week to week. We usually spend a lot of time talking about three drivers
Yeah, we don't
at the
typically talk
Ganassi
about four.
spot here. Yeah.
Yep.
We've talked at length about the struggles Jimmy Johnson has had on road and street courses. Uh, you know, but of course we would expect him to be better on the ovals, right? And he certainly was.
He was really good on ovals.
He was really good.
He's really good.
So Dixon, I want to get to Jimmy because we're going to spend some time talking about Jimmy here. So Dixon, fifth on Saturday, fourth place on Sunday. This was a particularly good weekend for Scott from a championship perspective. While he's tied with Newgarden, he's tied at third place. And I said earlier, I have more faith in Power winning this championship this season than I do Newgarden. I also have more faith in Dixon to take this championship than I do Newgarden.
I don't.
Tim's shaking
Okay.
his head no.
Yeah, I don't think
You
that's the
disagree
case.
for all the reasons you
Yeah.
said earlier. Yep.
Yeah. I don't want to go back through it.
Yeah. Pelot, sixth place on Saturday, 13th place on Sunday. I can't help but feel like, right, the shine has come off Pelot a little since contract gate.
I
He kind
I
of
agree
looks
with you.
he kind of looks like a man without a country to me.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned on Saturday that Pelot's remote access to Ganassi Engineering was revoked. I don't see that as too much of an issue given the circumstances. I kind of find that as like status quo, right? That's something that I would think is a natural course when
Mm-hmm.
somebody's situation with the team might be in question. But he still has to prepare. He still has to drive for this championship. He still has to present well for partners and sponsors. Um, if that hurts his preparation, I don't know. Tim, how do you see that?
I would think it would hurt your preparation. I almost see it as sitting on an island. You're on an island by yourself within a
Yeah.
team, and really your job is to walk to the car and get in it, drive it, do the best you can, provide feedback to your engineer,
Mm-hmm.
still have a good relationship with your engineer, right? You need to have that in order to be competitive in the series and to really compete week in and week out. So, but yeah, it's not the same. Not by any means. It's
Nope.
definitely a different situation there.
Yeah. His demeanor and his body language looks much different than what we've become accustomed to seeing out of Alex Palou.
Well, I'm sure even just interaction with your peers has changed.
I'm sure.
And your peers being every driver in the paddock. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
your teammates. Like your peers probably have, and probably some more understanding than others, and
Yep.
and others, just the way the world works. And so I don't know what it does for his career as a whole in IndyCar. Time's going to tell
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah,
here,
we'll see.
but it definitely looks different
Yeah.
from afar.
I would suspect that, his interactions with his peers are different, maybe a little strained in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that somebody like Alex Palou would consider Scott Dixon a peer, more a mentor, I would suspect. And we know that relationship is bruised.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm
Yeah,
sure that
I
he's
guess when
probably
Scott says it's that's you.
that's 100% the way you don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So, you and I spoke to Alex's dad in Detroit.
Sure
Seemed like a nice guy, right? Seemed like a
Mm-hmm.
really nice guy. We didn't speak directly to Alex, but we observed his interviews with other members of the press. Either he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, which I doubt highly, or is he's getting some really bad advice from his management and advisors. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think it's advice from management. I don't think he's a wolf in sheep clothing. I don't think that. No, he's a good kid. Just trying to figure out his path and what he wants to do in his racing career, and hopefully what he's done thus far doesn't hurt that, right? There's the potential for it to go really, really far south. And there's some patching to be done, right? I think it's a little bruised, and um, this great young kid who's just got an awesome personality and says all the right stuff most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
had an issue that is going to be one that's going to be hard to recover from, I believe.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Tim,
And you wonder, so you wonder about mentors and all that, but that's hard when you're talking contracts. I don't know how much you can confide in someone that's been with a team for so long to go, hey, I've got this thing and I want to talk to you, but it's hard to do.
I don't think you can go to Scott Dixon and say, hey, they're offering me a 3-year deal for $4 million a year or something like that. I think, you know what I mean? I don't think you can.
And I don't think he's got someone else in the series that's been through things like that he could have confided in either. Like it's a weird.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You would hope that his management on the other side is doing.
That's why you hire the right people in that.
Yeah.
Because those are the people you have to trust and rely on. So,
and it doesn't sound like, it sounds like there's more to come. I don't want to get derailed here, but it feels to me like even Zach Brown is starting to distance himself from this situation by saying, well, I've not seen his contract. He said he was free to sign.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want the guy that's trying to put you in his cars to say that. That's
yeah. That's no good. Tim, as a fan, how has this changed any of your view of Alex Palou?
Nothing Nothing major. Well, yeah, I look at him a little differently these days, but it's not one of that I don't want him to do well, and I don't want him to succeed. I think it's
Yeah.
just a curiosity of who was making the calls, why wasn't everybody on the same page, and hopefully it's a lesson learned and they can move on and he can save face, because I think right now that's what he needs to do, is save face in the IndyCar paddock and in the series.
Yeah. I tend to be paternal in certain circumstances. And in this circumstance, I am paternal. First, because I am concerned about the kid, right? He's young. And, I think where he's at, he burst onto this scene and he made such a big splash by winning this championship in his first year with Ganassi. You could get caught up in it a little bit. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if who he's listening to is selling him big dreams on the other side, um, that are just not going to happen, right? Then I feel bad for the kid. As a fan, I'm I'm not particularly fond of how this has gone. I'm not particularly fond of McLaren coming in like big dogs and dropping money and trying to poach people and do all that stuff, because while it happens, it doesn't need to happen that publicly. I don't think it needs to happen that brazenly either. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, you see all this Arrow McLaren stuff gear, when we go to the races, and you can see it in the crowd when you see that on TV, right? They're the most popular gear out there.
Sure,
That stuff can
sure.
change quickly, right? You can go from hero to
Mm-hmm.
villain very, very quickly. There's no in between. And I think that's the same that can be said for Palou. You can go from hero to villain quickly. I think that's the same that can be said for Arrow McLaren, if this is the way they're going to operate in the
Mm-hmm.
IndyCar paddock. Because it doesn't operate like that here. It operates like that in Formula One, that's fine. It doesn't operate like
Yeah.
that here.
And you just kind of look at other past situations with Arrow McLaren and what they've done. It's
Yeah. Did the
nothing's
Hinch,
changed.
did the Oliver
Yeah.
Askew, right?
Yeah, nothing's
That's why I'm
changed.
saying Rossi goes there. I wouldn't go there if I were Rossi,
Yeah.
right? But
But
I would have signed one more year with Andretti and tried to get back to Penske's good graces
mm-hmm.
when Will vacates the 12.
Yep.
Man, where are we at? Ericsson, eighth
We're
place on
yeah,
Saturday, sixth place on Sunday. God, that got heavy. Woo! Here's a guy, Ericsson, Marcus Ericsson, who
we're
has
back,
proven
everybody.
himself.
We're back.
Here's a guy who's proven himself a solid championship contender and someone who's very capable on any type of track. Obviously, he's the reigning Indy 500 champion, but has maintained his championship lead since Indy through consistency. And it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the year goes. We know he's good on all those tracks, Tim, as well as Ganassi. We know that they're good on all those tracks, Tim.
And this weekend was the big question mark for Chip Ganassi Racing on how well they would perform based
Yeah, they had a
on.
bad test there. Yeah.
And so, as I sort of discovered, they put on the face that, yeah, we're comfortable going here. We're going to, do well. But in the back of their minds, they were very nervous about this weekend. And they came out still with the championship points lead. And that put smiles on Ericsson's face.
Yeah. Nice guy. There's another calm customer when they interview him on TV.
He's a cool cat.
Yeah. Jimmy Johnson, 11th place Saturday, 5th place on Sunday. That's an amazing effort. The next time I expect to see Jimmy featured this positively during a broadcast will be Gateway. Between now and then and after, I think it'll settle back to the norm. I mean, still to me, Tim, I think this was a tremendous effort by Jimmy and probably pretty fun for him, given how the balance of the season has been. In race one, we saw Jimmy taking some unorthodox lines through traffic. For you, Tim, is that confidence? Is that naivete? Or is that desperation?
I think it's I don't think it's any of those, honestly. I think it's more of coming from stock car racing. I think it's more of a mental, I can't even think of the word right now, but it's more of a I don't want to say mind over matter. It's just how he's done it in the past. So
Yeah.
it's muscle memory. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to say. It's muscle memory that he is just used to doing those things, and that's what he's always done in his career. So
Yeah.
it just it just came to him during the race, and it wasn't anything that he was consciously thinking about. It's like, oh, I'm gonna drive it here, and then I'm gonna go down there, and then I'm gonna go back up here and back around. and
Yeah.
and in IndyCar, that normally doesn't happen. So I think it just
Right.
brought a new dynamic, and I think others sort of will look at that and go, oh, we can do more in the corners than what we thought we could with
Yeah.
these cars. It's not like you put it in one spot and you must carry it through that entire corner throughout the like turns 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Through the whole
It was
turn
like
there.
a video game at one point watching, right, Jimmy Johnson go through the field, and he was on the high line, he was on the middle line, he was on the low line, he was all over the place.
He was on the high line too.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like, well,
Yeah,
above the high line.
and that in that case, I felt like he was kind of an accident waiting to happen, right? Which it didn't, thankfully. He did have a spin in race 1. He didn't hit anything, which is amazing. But
It didn't happen, but it happened at Indy, right? It hurt him at
it
Indy.
did, yeah.
But it didn't. He got away with it here. He put the tire below the line or on the line and spun it in race 1.
Yeah.
But saved it. He's got great car control
did.
on these ovals and puts the car anywhere, which is,
Yeah.
I think others will take note. I think Gateway is going to be very interesting to see what that sort of looks like.
Yeah.
It makes me think of what Roman Grosjean did last year at Gateway and how his car was all over the track, and people were like, you can't put a car there.
God, you can help me with these segues. You're so good at it, because we're going to talk a lot about Roman next.
Yeah.
But just to kind of underscore Jimmy, at least as far as I'm concerned, I think, he did have confidence in that car, and I think a lot of what he was able to accomplish here might have been 51% Ganassi Racing and 49% 7-time NASCAR champ.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him. I know it sounds like it. Yeah, I am. I know it sounds like I'm hating on him half the time. I'm not. I admire what he's doing. I would never do what he was doing after having the career that he had at NASCAR, because there's nothing to add to your legacy here. You can only tarnish it at this point. Right.
I
and
think so.
I don't, has this necessarily tarnished it? No, because I think everybody's willing to give him a pass, just saying, dude, he's never driven anything like this before. I give him all the credit in the world for trying.
Yeah.
Right. And I do. He's never driven anything like this before, and I give him all the credit in the world for trying. Don't stick around too much longer, dude, because there's a lot of young guys behind you who deserve a shot at that seat.
Yeah. I do think overall Chip Ganassi Racing made one bonehead move at the end of race 2.
Do tell.
And it could come to bite him here soon. They didn't ask Jimmy to hold his position at the end of the race and let him pass Marcus Ericsson. I know it was talked about on the broadcast, but I was scratching my head the whole time as why are you having Jimmy pass the championship leader with 2-3 laps to go in the race and not just telling him to hold his position?
Yeah.
Good job done. We want the 2 additional points for Marcus Ericsson. So watch the 2 points, because it was a 2-point difference between where they finished, and see how that impacts the championship. It may not have an impact at all, but points are very precious when it comes down to the last 5 races.
Yeah, because it's getting snug at the top of the championship, and we'll obviously have that here before we're done.
Yep.
Andretti, you know who won this weekend for Andretti, Timmy? Roman Grosjean.
Yeah.
Just who you mentioned, right? Yeah. On an oval, he finished 7th in race 1, 9th in race 2. Versus his much more experienced teammate, Alexander Michael Rossi, who finished 13th in race 1 and 18th in race 2. Herta had an issue in race 1 where the car didn't seem to want to get into gear, so that is what it is. But race 2 seemed to be going okay, and he finished 12th. DeFrancesco never really factored this weekend. Here's what I don't understand. I don't understand the delta in this squad. And here's what I mean by that. For comparison, in race 1, Chip Ganassi Racing finished 5th, 6th, 8th, and 11th. 5, 6, 8, 11, right? Andretti finished 7, 13, 17, and 24. And to top that off, the guy who spent a career racing in Europe led this squad. Tim, tell me I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy. You're just putting the facts out there. There's something going on. We've talked about it all season.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening at Andretti. We try to say they're spread too thin with all the different series they're involved in.
Mhm.
When they went back to pre-aero screen setups to try to
Yeah.
figure out the setups for these vehicles or these cars, these race cars, these Deloras, whatever you want to call them. They just don't have it together. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Let's add two more cars to the Andretti squad because Andretti provides engineering support to Schenck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So race one, Castroneves finished 16th. Simon Pagenaud finished 23rd after starting 25th and 21st, right? In race two, you've got Castroneves finishing 21st and Pagenaud finishing 23rd after starting 24th and 16th. Andretti just was not good here, right? They just were not good here. Yeah. Bet all the way around.
And there's your power four, right?
That's our power four. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You're on a roll. I want you to.
You want to rock, paper, scissors this thing?
All right. We'll do it one time. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, way to wait to what I so I had paper and then Dan just comes up with scissors. Of course, right away.
Of course I pick up. I did scissors even when I said you want to do rock, paper, scissors.
So we're going for the fifth pick and who we're going to talk about. I get to choose my team. You're choosing your team.
Yeah.
I lost rock, paper, scissors unfairly, by the way, folks. And so I will go first. My fifth pick for this weekend is Dale Coyne Racing. And here's why. Solid team effort all around. Oh my goodness. With David's results, I'm glad I went first because now you have to listen to me first and then you can share yours. So solid team effort all around with David's results, and Takuma's race improvement from Saturday to Sunday was a reason that they got my pick. We've seen this team bring many racers to the series, right? So I'm going to give a little history here. And those drivers have moved to top teams. Most recently, Roman Grosjean, even Alex Palou, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But if you go back even further, you have Ed Jones, who went to Chip Ganassi Racing at the time and made his way back eventually. And even Paul Tracy, believe it or not, Paul Tracy made his first start in kart with Dale Coyne back in 1991 in the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yep.
So this team, a smaller team, does really well with bringing talent. And you look at both drivers that drive for them. First, I'll talk about David Malukas. Finished 14th, finished 8th, race 1, race 2, qualified really well too, 6th and 14th. So David had 2 solid finishes that have him only 4 points behind Christian Lundgaard in the rookie championship. Prior to coming to Iowa, right, David trailed Christian by 20 points. Although, in my opinion, he didn't get a ton of coverage during the races, he managed to keep it clean and be competitive all on an oval, right?
Yeah.
So he did really well. And his 8th place finish in the second race is his best of his career, of his young career in IndyCar. His previous best finish was 9th at Mid-Ohio. So
love it. Good job.
That was, the David Malukas side of it. And if you move over to Takuma, Sato, of course, right? 21st and 10th. So not so good, not really being a factor in race 1, but Takuma and the team made the changes they needed to make to be strong in the second race to finish 9th. Shows that the team can make the tweaks and put the car and drivers in a position to compete. Stellar run by Takuma and the team to turn that around. Yeah. So that's my 5th pick of.
I had Coyne as my honorable mention.
I
don't know if you could see it there. So for all the, and it was a toss up too, all for exactly the same reasons that you pointed out, right? And what you said earlier too, Tim. I don't want to take anything away from that because I think it's a extremely valid point. They had to race what they had on Saturday. But once they got Saturday behind them, they were able to make changes to the car and make some tweaks to the car. So that moved them, from 8. I mean, from 14th to 8th for Malukas and from 21st to 10th for Sato in race 2. So they were my honorable mention. They were
working. They know how to set the cars up.
Yeah.
They can put a car on track. Stellar performance.
And I think what I heard today was that Sato had some damage that they didn't recognize early on. Something with Simon Pagenaud in race 1. And so they had to stop for a wing change, and that's kind of what put Sato behind. As you know, if you make one unscheduled stop or a long pit stop on a short oval, you might as well just go home. So, but yeah, so that covers my honorable mention. I'll give you my power fifth. My power fifth was Callum Ilott in Juncos Hollinger Racing.
Very interesting.
Is my power fifth. In this particular case, finished 12th on Saturday, finished 11th on Sunday. Who did he beat? Race 1, he beat Alexander Michael Rossi. He beat this year's Rookie of the Year. I feel it, right? David Malukas. Elio Castroneves, 4-time Indy 500 winner. Connor Daly, who's a oval specialist. And Takuma Sato, 2-time Indy 500 champion, right? Oval specialist. Race 2, Callum Ilott and the very small Juncos Hollinger Racing team beat Alexander Rossi again, Colton Herta, right? Potentially F1 bound Colton Herta, Alex Palou, defending champ, and Connor Daly. Tim, this team, I mentioned it briefly about Colton Herta is, overperforming the team or the car that they're giving him. This team is overperforming what they have at their disposal. So you can imagine what they would do with sponsorships, right? Like Ray Hall Letterman, or sponsorships like, Ganassi, or just half of the resources that Ganassi has and brings to the table, what this team would be doing. I also put a lot of that with Callum Ilott. I think he's the real deal, dude. I think he's the real deal.
Is.
I think we're starting to see and hear Callum's name a little bit more than we see with Rinus VeeKay as being a hot free agent.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very good.
So that's my par 5. Your par 5 was Coyne. My honorable mention was Coyne. Who's your par 5? Or who's your honorable?
I just dropped it in the shared notes so you can see it as well, because I want it to be captured for our history of our show. So my honorable mention is Callum Ilott and Juncos Hollinger Racing. That's my honorable mention. No joke, folks. No joke. I'm not joking around here.
That's so funny.
So as you mentioned, he finished 12th in the first race after starting 22nd.
Yeah.
Finished 11th in race 2 after starting 22nd again. And my last note on this, I'm sure a lot of teams have him on their short list of drivers to acquire.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a great.
And I'm, of course, not looking at the notes because I print them out. So I don't look at them again.
I just dropped them in there as you were telling me who your 5th pick was, and I was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah. So wow, great. That's cool. That was
fun. That was fun for us. Hopefully, it was fun for the listeners.
Yeah. Championship standings: Marcus Ericsson, 403 points. Will Power, 8 points adrift there in second. It's starting to get snug now. Joseph Newgarden, 34 points behind. He's still tied with Dixon, but now he's tied for third. This is on the advance as Palou slips 2 spots. Pato O'Ward, 5th place, 36 points behind. Palou, 44 points behind. Scott McLaughlin, 86 points behind. I'm not really ready to call it yet there, but I am ready to call it on Colton Herta, who's 125 points behind.
Yeah, way too far back.
Yeah, way too far back. Obviously, way too far back for the championship. I think he's way too far back for this, elusive 3rd place that they need for like the super license. Yeah. Points. So I think that's it. But wrapping up this one up, I mean, we're back to the Indy Road Course next week. The series returns for race 2 on the Indy Road Course. Weather played a part in May. I don't expect that to be the case this time around. Timmy,
that's right. You were sitting in your car.
Yeah.
Sheltering.
Yeah, sheltering in place during the rain. Eating in-shelled peanuts in the front seat of my car, which I'm sure I still have peanut dust all over my car at this point.
Pictures out through Twitter. If you look at our Twitter feed, you'll see some pictures from inside his vehicle looking at the track.
Yeah. From May.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the road course. You're asking me who's my favorite to win this one?
Yeah.
Wow, I haven't thought much about it. I'm gonna go with Scotty Mack.
Oh,
McLaughlin's gonna win it.
Wow.
How about you?
I don't know. I never really thought about
it. Start thinking. You've already thought about it. You got Dixon?
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Dixon.
He was fast there around the oval, so
yeah.
Let's see if he can do it on the road course.
Yep. Well, that's all I got.
That's all I have too. It's been fun for
It's
Sunday.
Been fun. It's been fun for a Sunday.
Two races, a lot to do an analysis on, and we put it together for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if you're looking for, us to talk about, the balance of the teams, Ray Hall and whoever else out there, I guess, Ed Carpenter Racing and all the rest of that. But with two races, I think it was, to me, I didn't want to get into a team by team because we'd be here for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I wanted to concentrate on the top and what it means, because it's starting to mean something, right? There's some underlying storylines here, right? With the contract situation at Ganassi and potentially at McLaren, and Arrow McLaren starting to, eat at the big table, and Penske's dominance. So I wanted to make sure that we had time to spend on that. So I thank you for sticking with us. Go ahead, Timmy.
I just have one thing for the listeners. I'd love to know your fifth pick. So for the weekend. So if you got an opinion out there and you want to share it, feel free to hit us up on our social media, which is, available in the show notes. So hit us up and let us know, because I want to. Yeah. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Dan? Do you agree with both of us? Do you have somebody else?
Yeah. Who would you?
Obviously, one of the teams we didn't mention was behind this whole event.
Yeah.
At least their sponsor was.
I wanted to, but I would have been pandering. Only pandering.
I know.
Yeah.
I thought you might, though. I thought you still might bring it in, but
yeah. And it was a toss up for me between Coin and Juncos.
Me too.
But yeah. So thank you for listening. As always, engage with us on social media. Consider becoming a Patreon sponsor if you'd like to do that. You can take a look at that in our show notes as well. And continue to take a look at this fantasy. Tim, did you look at our fantasy results yet?
I've not played in the last 4 races. I don't know what my deal is. I keep forgetting. Can you send me a text to remind me?
No, I do. I no.
Have you been playing?
Of course. That explains why I'm beating you. Right?
Yeah, I don't get any points.
But I am not winning. I am not winning.
I got to get back on that. I'll do it. I promise everybody in the fantasy league, I'll do it this weekend.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't pull it up quick enough. I'm just not.
We'll go over it next week after I actually.
Kart Fan 26. Oh no, Yuka is winning 1,640 points with Team Yellow S2000, which is Superfan Mark. Second place. Yeah.
Well, good for those.
Well, I'm in 4th. You're in 5th.
Well, I've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit. Let me get back on.
Yeah.
How far am I behind you?
Way behind. Insurmountable.
Oh.
330
There's still 5 races.
points.
I think I can make it up.
Yeah.
Don't count me out yet.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.